Hello and welcome to this next episode of the FESPA podcast, Up Close and Personal with me, Richard Askam. I join you today. I'm out on the road today, so apologies if you can hear a lot of background noise. It's one of the advantages of this digital backdrop, actually, is that you can't see the 30 people sat behind me all drinking cappuccino in the coffee shop that I'm in, but you can possibly hear them, so I apologise for that. And if anybody leans in to take my cup away, I apologise for that as well. But I'm delighted to be joined this morning on this episode by Douglas Gibson and Chris Minn from Infigo. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Richard. How are we doing? One quick question before we go. What's your coffee flavour?
I've gone regular cappuccino this morning, but a little bit extra hot, because I'm one of those people that likes to get a hot coffee and then blow on it to make it cold. Because if it arrives cold, it's not nice, is it? Really? So I'm
the complete opposite. I like it really cold. I like to chug it. So most of the drinks that I consume.
we'll gloss over that one. I think this morning. So Chris, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Happy New Year, Richard.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Disappointing to see your plan. It's safe with the cappuccino, double espresso for me.
It's not my first one. I've had about 9, so so on that basis, I'm ready to go. So we're all excited and ready to go. But it's great that you can join me. Obviously, we're recording this at the beginning of January, hence the Happy New Year's. This may not well play out till May, so that won't live long. But there we are. We'll see how we get on. But thank you first and foremost for joining me. And like with all of my guests, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you both the same question because that's really the catalyst to today's conversation. That question is, what does personalisation mean to you? And I'm going to start with you, Doug.
Excellent. Thanks, Richard, and thanks for having us on. And Figo always pleased to support these different events and online forums. So personalisation, that's a great one. I've been in this industry 1 or 2 years, so it's a very pertinent question. I think it really depends on the situation that we find it. I think that there is a wide variety of personalization uses, and I've been involved in those different levels, whether it's directly reaching a consumer from a brand perspective, or we're trying to take a message on a statement and put some other content on there, or it could be just the actual content is more relevant to the user. So I think depending on the channel, ultimately it's about that tailored emotional content that's going to create a reaction and ultimately make things sticky. That's what personalization, in my view, does. It makes it sticky because people remember it, people want to keep hold of it, and that doesn't matter whether you're giving somebody a mug with a name on it or a letter that has actually been thought about and got the right content, or a card that's got somebody's picture and things like that. So to answer your question in a more succinct way, it really is about helping that message be a lot more sticky and emotional for the brand, the getting to the consumer.
Yeah, I like that. No, I like that sticky. We'll stick with that as a theme. So you see what I did there? The coffee is kicking in. Chris, same question to you.
I think we've spoken before, Richard. For me, it's about emotional engagement, very similar to what Douglas is saying there. But it's probably when we spoke previously about this on this topic, we were discussing how that engagement is now transferred into different print sectors, and how we're seeing the same kind of emotional attachment now with packaging on food or pet products, for example. And I think that's paramount for the industry to keep people coming back and keeping those supply chains and those presses running.
It's definitely that moment, isn't it? You mentioned letters there as well, Doug. That it's definitely that moment when we still all like, I think, as humans, when people recognize us well enough to call us by our name. I think it's
100%. Yeah,
it's a real sort of feeling. I think that you raise yourself up a little bit taller in your boots and think, okay, well they've taken the trouble to at the very least find out my name. You mentioned letters there, and I've spoken for many years about the old dear sir or madam letter, the letter that you get from business. They haven't even taken the trouble to find out what gender you are, never mind who you are. So in your experience, Doug, when you've received personalized material, be that from a gifting perspective or a service perspective, what have you seen? What have you seen come across your desk that's really worked, that's made it sticky for you?
So I'll give the opposite example. So I was sent a letter the other day, or a company would like to buy Infigo. But the first thing they got was our company name wrong. It wasn't even our company. And he said, we take great interest in Infigo. And then the second line was, and XXY construction. I thought, and I literally, I actually emailed, it was from the CEO of this prospecting business, and I actually emailed them. So I think if you get it wrong, it could have quite great consequences. But if I look at it in a couple of ways, if I look at it in from that right to consumer perspective, I think it allows the printing community as such, on the wide variety from packaging to commercial print, labels and such, to productize their service. So it allows them to create a product that will go direct to consumer, whereas maybe they were providing a service to a brand previously. Now they're creating a product. So that allows them maybe to add a bit more value. It allows them to maybe add some more margin and things like that. So I think that's what I've definitely seen when I'm dealing directly with those customers. It's a way for them to actually drive back in the profit, drive back in the value that they're offering to brands, and for those that are absolutely up there and are favour the technology and making use of it. Me personally, as the consumer, I've got a dozen things that I will keep. So I've got a little money box that was, I think it was Boomf that came, that used to spring up, and I've kept that, and that's been with me 5 years. And that's a little paper box that was probably $20. It cost maybe less than 50 pence to even create. So those sorts of gifts, and then I look at that then. So that I look at that, those consumer packages. Then I look at, I'm a huge car guy, and Audi always do great personalization. So I've gone to events that I have zero interest, because the intrigue that they've got the car right, they've got the number plate, as you say, it's not my name, but they've took an effort. Maybe they've known a previous car, so it's that information that they've taken there. So it's really that engagement piece that has got me holding on to product longer. And I think I've actually still got one of the Audi letters sitting in the paperwork somewhere as well, because I look at it and I use it to stimulate things when I'm talking people from that perspective as well. It's really interesting, isn't it? And you mentioned about the emotional connection, Chris, in your answer to the initial question. And what you're describing there, Dougie, is when brands get it right and they understand largely what ticks your boxes, and then they do that well. I mean, this is all back to the value that we put around the thought of a gift rather than just the execution of a gift. And Chris, when you talk about emotion, I guess it's the emotional engagement with whatever that is that determines whether you want to keep it as a memento.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also Douglas made a really good point there, talking about the printers having the opportunity to go direct to the consumer now, because you can bring that value to the receiver, that engagement, straight from an online experience. And it doesn't even have to be letters or names. It can be an image. It can be an image. It could be, say, an image of a car for Douglas, the car that resonates, that he wants to have. Yeah,
the opportunity. Obviously, HP have gone crazy with their direct to consumer mosaic and things like that, and that's really got just that value in changing maybe the image, that it's a Scottish flag for Scotland and an English flag. There's got that desire to hold on to those things. You're absolutely right, Chris.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going now. I think personalization is far broader than where we were pre-COVID. I think there's an expectation now of personalization and that engagement on every product. And I think the next generation that we're seeing in the office that we're employing and working with, and other companies, they're going to expect this. This will be an expectation.
I agree. So is it? Do you think incumbent now on, because the print industry have done a very good job at let's say tooling up to be able to supply individualized items, let's call them that, rather than everything at scale, a million ones as John Bailey would call it. So do you think now it's incumbent upon those print businesses to almost work as an R&D partner with brands rather than responding to a request? maybe working with them to develop product, because if we're agreeing here, and I think we are, that the ones that mean the most to you are the ones that have got the most thought attached. It's not necessarily the product, it's the message. Is it incumbent on the print industry to be that product partner?
I don't know if it's incumbent, but I think there has to be a desire that they have to be more innovative. I think it used to be that, right, and this is, I think you've got different waves as well. You've got the GCP that have been doing, general commercial printers, that have been doing this forever. And they've got Microsoft Word doing some names and letters, and then you might have some more fancier tools for doing more advanced image placement and stuff, and then you can get the crazy stuff like the HP Mosaic, etc. But I think these guys have got to be they really have got to be innovators, and we can see that those guys that take, whether it be machining to allow them to be able to finish and stuff like that easier, whether it be the digital devices. But I think we're seeing, everybody's seeing this expansion in digital print technology, whether it be wide format, whether it be commercial print, large litho, whatever it is that we're seeing. Sorry, not litho, but we're seeing this explosion. And why is that? Because personalization is more than just this name and stuff like that. We've got a great little coffee shop by us in Linfield, leafy little village, and they've gone out and got their own little coffee packs and things like that. So in my view, that's personalization. They're taking pride in their brand and they're personalizing that to their own shop and then out to the consumer, because they know that will get shared. And I've seen these packs now in other people's shops and things like that. So I think that, as you mentioned there, Chris, that personalization message is getting broader. It's more just about the name. It's more just about the content. It's really fueling this one of millions or tens of millions. And I'd argue that almost everything is in its right is becoming personalized. That's why we're seeing this explosion of short runs, because that content, and we've seen an evolution of change in the last 3 years, which has been fueled. We can't print 1 million anymore. We just can't do it. We just can't print 1 million.
I think with that, sorry, Richard, I just jump on Douglas's point there, because I think he opens up another topic of conversation, that if we're not going to do these larger runs, and we've got to work on smaller runs, our workflows and our systems need to be better integrated, and our automation needs to flow. Because if we're going to allow the consumer to jump online and upload one image to go on one bottle, then it's got to be cost effective for the printer to create that job and deliver it. So we've got to change the way we think, not just from the front end, but the whole 360 turnkey.
You're listening to the Up Close and Personal podcast from FESPA with me, Richard Askam, and my guests today, Dougie Gibson and Chris Minn from Infigo. And we're talking about emotion, which is what we like to do on a Monday morning, gentlemen, isn't it? I recently posed the question via my social media, what's the best personalized gift that you've received? And I was inundated with responses, but the one thing that ran all the way through it as a common thread was largely things that had been done for them by their children. So we're talking about hand-drawn cards. We're talking about, the sort of stuff. I was maybe never going to get hung in the Tate, but for you, it is the priceless piece of art that means the most. Is there a way? And I'm a Luddite in terms of technology. Is there a way now that technology allows people to draw the image that they want to have via an iPad or other tablets are available, and have that image be recreated on a product? Because if we're agreeing, it's a long question, if we're agreeing that the emotive point is the one that connects us to the brand, surely the brand would be better off trying to find the emotive trigger point in the consumer, consequentially selling the product.
So I think we're seeing, I'll answer that in two ways, as always, so we demonstrated actually at one of the shows, I won't name it in case there's any conflict with FESPA, but we actually did that so people could order a personalized can with a shrink sleeve, and they could actually, I think we did a signature on this one, so they could upload some content, choose the personalized, and then they could sign that. But I think what we're seeing, there's this huge explosion with avatars. as well. So it's not just signing. You've got kids that can create their own faces. You've got kids that can be added to stories. And we've got also a message. We've got a fantastic customer called Sensitive Matters. And they're dealing with a very difficult conversation, which is about where, for young children, where their parents were from, all different backgrounds. We're living in a world where is not the norm. So they're using personalization of that complete content to deliver a very personal, a very delicate information. So in that book, we're seeing it may be a little hand-drawn piece from the child when they were younger. We're seeing the content based on whether it was two mums that created this beautiful child, or a mum and a dad, wherever it may be, or an adoptee child. So they're using this very, very sensitive information. Then they can even upload and create the child. So that whole content of that book.
Yeah,
so
that's brilliant.
Although we're seeing it in very great stuff. So yeah, I think we're seeing that. We're seeing images, we're seeing caricatures, we're seeing content, etc. But telling stories, which I know is a great thing of yours, Richard.
Well, absolutely, and Chris, I think Dougie makes a really key point there, and we've moved on now. We've turned the page from your name on something, so it's what does that then mean, really? What's next in terms of what we can offer, and what you're describing there, is a toolkit, really, by using that degree of emotive connection to open up, not just start a conversation, but open up and continue that conversation. Is that how you see it, Chris?
Yeah, 100%. I think also what we've got to bear in mind is the world we live in now, in terms of everyone carrying a smartphone. Everybody is online, they're on social media by the second. So if something happens, they will react. They're very reactive and live in the moment. So we need to have the ability to create imagery or some kind of engagement piece. It could be, so you're talking about kids, it could be drawing a picture with an iPhone or an iPad, and you might then want to upload that picture onto a product. That's going to happen very quickly. So that's good in the sense that people now have half of the tools to create that personalization. But then it's very, very important as well that the journey for them to upload that piece of creative material is slick, because again, people are very impatient these days because everything is such a on high demand and on the go. So I would say, to answer your original question, we have the tools in place through society right the way through to the industry, but I think we just got to be aware that we have that right sort of process and journey, so people don't get frustrated and drop out.
Absolutely, that's customer experience is always key, but I guess they need to want the thing at the end of that experience first in order to participate. So you're absolutely right. One of the goals of this new show, the Personalisation Experience in May in Munich, is really to invite everybody, Dougie, in pretty much across the spectrum of interested parties in personalisation, inside the room, inside the tent, if you like, to have one big conversation about what's possible. Because I don't know if you agree with me on this one. I think it's still fragmented between capability and desirability, and that's across from the print industry, let's say, on one side, to brands, agencies, retailers, consumers on the other. What you know to be possible, or what the print industry knows to be possible, isn't necessarily reaching its target audience. The goal of this show is to bring everybody under one roof and have that whole conversation. I don't know anywhere in the world that's tried this yet. Everybody tends to do these things in isolation, and everybody is very self-congratulatory. Do you think it's going to work?
I think will you hit the note first time? We know that's never going to be the case, but is moving to that pivotal goal. And I'm a huge engineering background. I've got this thing right. I'm going to build it. It's going to be great. Actually, first time, prototype 1, prototype 2. And I think what you're doing is you're creating a movement, because I'm a brand. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm like, oh, right, I'd really like to get to my consumer. What does that mean? What does it do? How do I get there? And I'm sort of lost in my mind. Do I go to my printer? Do I go to my agency? My agency doesn't know whether I should go to the printer or a tech hub. And I think it's almost like that demarcation. Do they come to Infigo? How do they enable that? And I think you've seen an absolute mishmash of opportunity and people that have delivered that maybe not that great. We've mentioned a couple of times user experience. They've tried to hash it together. I think what we're seeing is an absolute desire to be able to do this. And I think that's really exciting for all of us, both the software providers, and Infigo as a technology provider, HP, Xerox, all of those guys as print providers. I think there's some real desire to do that. But I think what you guys are trying to do, which I think is absolutely brilliant, and something FESPA really pushing, is right, guys, you want to have this message. You want to, how do I do that? And I think you're trying to share that message. And the reality is what is possible is turned on the head. What isn't possible with personalization?
Yeah.
Because you can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it comes down to time, budget, technology, and willingness to be able to take that leap and jump and move on from that one-off project. I think that's where a number of these brands have got really burnt, is they've spent X amount of hundreds of thousands of millions of pounds on this campaign. But actually what it's about is longevity. Where can I take this one? Where can I build that? And it actually becomes, I was talking to one of the big consumer and giants the other day, and they're saying that one of their pillars is going to be personalization. But that just wasn't the print piece. That was the content of what they were shipping. That it was about the messaging. It was about everything to do with what ends up with the consumer. So I think you guys are going to nail it. It will need some tweaking, but to start and take that journey and learning that personalized experience is fundamental as we move forward in all our journeys.
Well, in order to get to the next stage of anything, and let's say the last, I mean, it's 7 years now since Share a Coke, and I don't think anything's come along that's been better. I mean, there's many that's been as good, but nothing's been better. So 7 years, we've increased the capability for everybody to be able to deliver on personalization. But now the need has grown beyond the capability from the consumer, from the brand. So Chris, when you look at a show like this and you think, if I had 5 minutes in a room, and you're a good talker like me, if you had 5 minutes in a room with 5 people that didn't know what was possible, with a show, the intention of a show like this is to demonstrate that it's all already possible. It's just they didn't know. Do you see that we can join the dots here?
Yeah, I'd just like to say on Douglas's point, attitude. He mentioned attitude and thinking, in the right positive mindset to, anything's possible. I think we have to come away as an industry from this attitude of we've always done it this way, like Douglas made reference to, large runs. We've got to think differently. COVID has taught us a very, very valuable lesson. And the print industry has been given a second bite at the apple post-COVID. We've now seen a boom in our space. And it's in these economic times, we need to really take hold of that. But I think we will have a responsibility for communities like this to support them, to enable us as an industry to grow and develop and grow with the times, grow with the next generations. The world's changing and we've got to change with it. And I think what I would say to anyone attending that event is you've got to show the support and you've got to be responsible and adopt for change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, come at us with the impossible and we'll make it possible.
And I think that's one of the barriers, actually, Dougie, is because people don't know it's possible. They don't ask. So you have this, the irony of personalization is it's supposed to increase communication. The breakdown has come, I think, because everybody's seen 1 or 2 things work well and imagine that that's what it is. And because they don't want to do those 1 or 2 things, they don't do it. It's a really good point about it not being a campaign, about being a way of being. And we need to get away from these novelty marketing campaigns, if you like. Where yes, I could put your name on something, but does it really mean anything? Do I really want it? How do you see going forward? We've got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to push you for a quick answer. How do you see going forward? What does good look like for you in the next 2 or 3 years in terms of personalized products?
Well, I think we're seeing it now. We really are. If I can't obviously name the names, but I look at it's building a B2B channel and a B2C channel together. And I think that the consumer gets the excitement, but then the B2B element drives that value and stuff like that. So if we take something a little bit a shampoo, right? You're going to get excited by personalizing that shampoo to the consumer, and you might get millions of sales. But actually, if you could get that personalized shampoo bottle into every salon with the salon's name on it, personalized, then that's your volume, that's your long-term goal. And that's what I think the difference that we are seeing is that co-branding, as well as that consumer piece to get the excitement and the idea. It's supporting it with B2B. And we've got probably a dozen projects where we got working with a bottle company at the moment that provides those drinks bottles.
Yep.
Cracking high value product. They've got great sales, but the B2B is fueling that volume as well. So B2C coming together with B2B and finding those different markets that give some longevity.
Yeah, I like that. Chris, I'm going to give you the final word, seeing as Douglas has just talked about shampoo.
Yeah, well, I was going to say something very similar, actually, and talk about or even coffee. But Douglas is right. We've seen over in the US, the packaging, the label space, they know they need to get involved with this. They want a slice of the B2C action, although, like Douglas said, alongside a B2B as well. It's already happening. I think that the key point is, are you ready to adapt with that change? And if you're not, you're going to miss out.
Absolutely. Well, listen, gentlemen, as always, you've been fascinating to talk to. Thank you very much for joining me this morning on the Up Close and Personal podcast. We hope to see you in Munich in May for the personalisation experience, along with everybody else. But if you can't, just keep tuning into these podcasts every fortnight, and you'll hear some interesting experiences and opinions from industry professionals around the world. Douglas, lovely to see you as always. Chris, thank you for your time. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Richard. Take care. Enjoy your coffee.
Thanks, Richard.